the end of the day came, and that same team leader looked at me and said, "Hey, there's a basketball game tonight. You want to stay for it?" And again, intern, college student, hell yes. And so there was a definitive moment. We watched warm-ups courtside. We were sitting in the suite, and I was eating my dinner, and it was a commercial break between play. And I was watching sort of the hype squad come out, and we're sitting in a packed stadium of however 15 some odd thousand. I don't even know what the stadium's capacity was, but that's beside the point. I was sitting among 15,000 people who absolutely love this team that they're watching. And they're so fired up and they're so invested. And like the flip of a switch, I realized if you build a business right and if you do things the right way, business can do very, very good things.
That is Ben Trela, this week on the Do It For Yourself podcast. Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode here on the Do It For Yourself podcast. My name is Ian, and I am the host here on the Do It For Yourself podcast, and I am really, really excited that you are taking the chance to come and hang out with us, and you're taking the chance to spend some time here and listen to another amazing interview of someone who is doing it for themselves. This week, my guest is Ben Trela, and when I got connected with Ben, he was a little uncertain that he wanted to do an interview on the Do It For Yourself podcast because he didn't feel like he had completely done it for himself just yet. Ben had started as a theater major in college and eventually switched over to finance and business, but he has not yet completed his degree. And so he felt like it may not have been the right time. But I said to him, Ben, I want to make this an evergreen episode. And I want to take the chance to sit down with you so that in a few months, years, whatever it may be, we can sit down again and we can document your story and show your progress towards chasing and reaching your goal. So that is really my intention with this episode this week. It is to share a story of someone who is in the progress of doing it for themselves. This podcast does not ultimately have to be a story of someone who has already accomplished the goal that they were looking to accomplish. I would like to use it also as a platform for people to tell their story and how they are going to do it for themselves, and as a platform to keep people accountable because they are now putting it out there in the open for what they want to do. So that is my intention with Ben's episode this week, and I hope that you enjoy. I am ready when you are ready, my friend.
Sweet. Punch it, Chewy.
All right. So, Ben, I would like to start off by saying thank you so much for coming on the podcast this evening and being open to this idea. I know that, we had some back and forth, and you felt that you may not have been at the level to come on to the Do It For Yourself podcast and talk about your story and how you were doing it for yourself because you weren't quite at that point yet. And we'll get into that a little bit, but I wanted to have you on so that we could go through your story from where you were in high school up until the point of where you are today, and then kind of where you want to take this. So again, thank you so much for coming on. And if you could just do me a favor, introduce yourself for everybody who's listening, maybe give us a couple points about what you're up to.
Yeah, sounds great. So first, I want to say thanks for having me on here, Ian. This is the first interview that I've been on the other side of the table on. So I'm excited to be in the hot seat a little bit and share in a way where hopefully people can take some action from my story and at least feel comfortable in being early in the process. So I went to a small high school just outside of Detroit, about 15 minutes outside of Detroit, and had a small graduating class. Our class was the biggest in recent history, and I want to say we had maybe 130 kids. So a small community. I'm a finance and accounting student at Wayne State University, wrapping up my last two classes now. One finished 2 weeks ago, and the other is going to be done in the beginning of August. So to that point, like I said, I'm a finance and accounting student. I kind of took a roundabout road to get here, which I'm excited to dive into as well. And I am really interested in continuing down the entrepreneurial path.
And so you kind of mentioned it a little bit there, but let's talk about when you were in high school. So, what were some of the things that you were into in high school? What were some of the things that you were interested in, what you were up to, kind of like extracurriculars and stuff like that?
For sure. So, I'm the type that likes to keep busy. The more free time I have, I'm the youngest of five, so I'm used to going to everyone's everything. I'm used to constantly being on the move and constantly being on my game. And that's shown throughout my life in different ways. In high school, I played tennis in the fall. I did theater in the late fall up until about the end of November. And then from there, I did theater during the spring as well, in addition to my regular course load. And I did the NHS thing for a little bit. I spent some time at my school's game club. I'm kind of a nerd in some ways where I enjoy the sciences. I got some good value out of the mathematics classes I was taking. But mine is really a story of being busy and always being on the move.
And so, how did you get pulled into the theater realm and how did you get interested in that?
So I first started doing theater in middle school. Actually, let me take that back. Fifth grade. For part of my drama class as a fifth grader, we did this, spring musical play. No real plot development. We were crayons in a crayon box who all wanted to have our place on the coloring pages and all that kind of stuff. So my role was the foreman. I got to tell everyone where they were going to color, whether you're doing clouds if you're the white crayons, you're doing lakes or the sky if you're the blue crayons, grass if you're green, the whole nine. And that was my first real introduction into creating a role. From there, my brother and sister had been active in theater at a local theater company, a theater troupe, whatever you prefer calling it. And they said, hey, you're a cute kid, come on out, we're doing Beauty and the Beast, and you'd probably be a good actor to have playing as Chip, who's Mrs. Potts' son, the little cup with the chip in the side. That was me, and that was my first role in theater. And from there, I found a place to be very expressive and very animated, and to develop a character. Something I've noticed that's really interesting in hearing myself speak about my theater experience when I was in it, or hear about professional actors, is most professional actors talk about the character as if it's a second person. This person is very motivated by X, Y, and Z. For me, my character was very much ingrained in my personality, and we grew together, me and this character that I was creating, until ultimately it took its place on the stage. And something about creating something new and creating something fresh and taking these limited interactions and these stage directions of go to stage left, go to stage right, and determining why I was doing them and creating an entirely new person behind that was absolutely fascinating for me. And I was on the hook. I enjoyed the singing. I enjoyed the choreography. I enjoyed the acting, the learning how to express emotion and what emotion truly is.
So this drama class that you were taking in fifth grade, that was kind of like where you got a chance to dip your toe in the water. Was this a required class as a fifth grader? Like, did everyone have to go through that?
Yeah, it was music and drama. I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on this, it was a while ago, but I'm pretty sure it was a required class. Yeah.
Okay, and then that's what sparked your interest. But then from there, your older siblings were also into theater.
Correct. And I wouldn't say it really sparked my interest because it wasn't it cracked the door, right? It didn't
Mhm.
blow the door wide open like that first production did or anything along those lines. It really said, "Hey, this is a thing you can do if you're interested in." And then my siblings said, "Hey, come on out for this audition. It'd probably be fun. You'd probably enjoy it. Let's get to work."
And so, as you're going through this middle school and high school, and you're in theater, um, middle school and high school is the point where I think kids really find like how they can be mean and who they can be mean towards, and it's where it really starts to separate into, okay, we know these kids are the bullies, and these kids over here are the nice kids. And it seems like there's always a few kind of cliques or people that are the easiest to latch onto and make fun of. And for me, I was the kid that was overweight. So it was very easy for people to call out the obvious and make fun of me. But I will also say that while I was of that age, the theater kids, specifically the theater guys, were also some of the ones that were the first to be made fun of. So, did you have to deal with any of that? I know you said that you were in a smaller school, so it may not have been quite the same. But did you have to deal with anybody who was giving you a hard time for being a part of this program?
Thinking back on it, I really didn't internalize any of it, or I didn't give it any credibility, or I didn't even acknowledge it for the most part. I'm sure, like you said, that at some point or another, people chatted about it, as people naturally do, but it was never something that I was aware of, or if I was aware of it, it was never something that I cared enough about to internalize it all that much. Maybe I didn't always feel like I got to share my story well, or, I was part of that core group or a super popular guy, but I was just me. And so I was unapologetic about it. Like, hell yeah, I'm going to do theater. I love doing it. It's something I'm passionate about. And if you don't understand that, or if you don't appreciate that, or if you want to turn that against me, then that's up to you. That's your call. I can't internalize your opinion of that. I'm just doing me.
And so you were so passionate about theater and everything that you were doing while you were in high school that as you started to look at colleges, you started to consider being a theater major, and that was what you were going to then go to school for in college. What was your plan with the theater major, and where did you want to take that through college?
So I didn't overly plan, if that makes sense. So I said, okay, I want to be a theater major because I enjoy performance. I want to be an actor. I love being on the stage and sharing stories. Really, that's what acting is. It's becoming this new person, it's creating this new story with other people. So there's a community aspect to it, right? But I didn't say, this is what I want to do with my theater major. I said, this is what I want to do, and my theater major complements it. So I really enjoyed that performance aspect, that bringing something to life. And that's what I wanted to do.
And for those of us who are ignorant to what exactly you could do with a theater degree once you have graduated from college, could you just talk to us about, what you could go on to do after college? I know you said that you didn't have much of a plan in place, but there's obviously things that you could then go on and do afterwards. I mean, does this mean that you could potentially become a professional actor? You were going to go on and be on the big screen? Were you going to, just kind of participate in smaller local things? I know for us here where I'm located, we have like the Pennsylvania Renaissance Fair where that happens every single year. It's really long, and they have actors who are there, day in and day out putting on a show. They have jousting, they have all this kinds of stuff. So, what are some of the things that you could have done with this major?
So I always kind of had ambition, and I've always wanted big things, whether I've admitted it to myself or not. And so I probably would have tried to take this the big screen route, become, that well known, famous actor, because I probably would have enjoyed that a lot. You could do acting, you can specialize in set design, scene design, light design, audio, the whole nine. It's a full production. It's not just here's an actor on a stage. Every single component has to be in alignment for that machine to run. It's like a business, right? If accounting ain't talking to your purchasers, then life is going to get out of whack pretty quick. And granted, that's a weird parallel to draw because theater and business are two different extremes. But the fact of the matter is, you could take it a lot of different places. Not everyone's going to make it big with a theater degree. That's not always that practical for people. But that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to become this bigger character.
And so when you were making these considerations and you were looking at going to school for theater and, maybe although you didn't want to admit it to yourself at the time, you had these aspirations to possibly go onto the big screen. Was there anyone who is saying, Ben, you're nuts. Like, this is never going to happen. You should pick something that's, maybe a little bit more concrete, like maybe you should go in for something like teaching, or maybe you should go for like med school. You should go for something that's, has a little bit more promise, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure people said it, but I never heard it. And if I heard it, I didn't listen to it. And so my family is very, very supportive of each other. It manifests in different ways as sibling dynamics have matured and as we have matured. So my family historically and continues to be very supportive of each individual within it. So, I have siblings. I have a brother that went to art school. I have a brother who's a chef. I have a brother who is a teacher. My sister's a nurse, and I'm in business. So it's a wide spread of us. We're all over the map, but we're all supportive of each other's endeavors.
And so you find the college that you're going to go to. They have the theater major. You're very excited. You get there. You start taking some classes. At this point, are you just in general ed classes? Are you just taking your normal math, your normal English, things like that, your prerequisites to kind of knock those out that most people have to knock out within, their first probably like year or 2 years when entering college or university?
While I was in high school, I had the privilege of going to a school that had a strong academic program and had a very strong advanced placement program. So I tested out of a lot of those requirements, those prereqs, as you mentioned. So when I started at Wayne State, I started directly into the theater curriculum with sort of the general classes. Sure, I had a couple, one-off undergrad prereqs that I had to take that I couldn't get with my AP exams. But for the most part, I jumped right into the theater program.
And so you're there. I mean, you're right there. You're at school. You're jumping into this theater program. This is exactly what you wanted to be doing. How did that feel? How did it feel to be on campus and you're living the college life? You're there doing exactly what you want to be doing. How did that feel for you?
So I sort of have a unusual college experience. I started at the first big office, real job that I had 4 days before I started at Wayne State. So I worked throughout my college career. Like I said, I'm the type that likes to be busy, and I work best when I'm juggling and when I'm doing different things that constantly keep me engaged. So I had some professional experience that I was balancing with my classes. And that probably taints my perspective a little bit from the standard college experience. But one of the most freeing feelings was being away from home. I love my family. I love my parents. I love everything they've done for me. But I got to start to create my own identity and create my own personality. And that's such a freeing feeling because the moment that happens, I could start to unfold into the person that I wanted to become.
Hey, I completely agree with you on that one. Like nobody wants to leave their parents, you know? I mean, well, I shouldn't say nobody. I'm sure there's, somebody out there who's going to raise their hand and be like, "I couldn't wait to get the hell out," you know? But I mean, for the most part, like you said, everybody, loves their family. They love coming up with them and they hate to leave and a lot of people, really struggle for that first probably 3 months to 6 months being away from home. I know a lot of people that graduated from my high school they went off to their dream school. They went off to, you know, South Carolina. They're at Coastal Carolina. They couldn't wait to get down there. They were going to be 5 minutes from the beach. And then they realized like, oh man, this isn't exactly what I thought. Like I really miss my parents. And I mean, 3 months in, 4 months in, they're like, I think I'm ready to go back home. Like I don't want to be here. So I can completely see that side of it.
They
But
were living the
how did
dream
it?
and they woke up.
Yeah, yeah. But how did it feel to be there taking these theater classes and really starting to hone your craft, in the theater? I'm sure it was probably a little bit different getting these higher level classes and maybe some higher level instruction, not to discount what you were getting from the people who were, helping you through high school. But I would have to imagine that when you're going to a university for something, you're getting a little bit of a higher level of a learning experience. So what was that part of it like for you?
Yeah, so two quick things I want to break down. One, I'll get to that question in a sec. But first, my family, one of the reasons why I chose Wayne State is because it's about 15 minutes from my parents' house. And so my dad had moved away for work and then he came home. My sister went away to college. My brother went away for work for a year or so to do his own thing. And then we all kind of found our way back to the Detroit area. And so my mom, as part of this, everyone's coming home and everyone's back together. And it might have been my sister's idea originally, but don't quote me on that. My mom started hosting Sunday dinners. So my siblings, whoever was around, whoever, was just at home for the day would just go to my parents' house. We'd have a dinner together, have a meal, catch up, and go from there. So I didn't really have that 3 to 6 month, I don't want to say crisis, but that awakening of, oh, wow, I really do miss that welcoming home that I had. I didn't have that because I stayed engaged with it while I was at school. As to your other question, what was it like getting that higher level instruction? The first theater course I took was just a general, here is what theater is, here are the different components and disciplines within it, and you get to try them. So we did a little bit of acting. We did a little bit of, I don't think we did choreography, but we did set design and lighting design and sound design. And that was a hard awakening for me because I realized I don't have the vision to create that set component or that costume or any of the other technical components besides the actual performing and developing of a character. I don't have the vision for that. And so for me, that was the first step back awakening where I realized, oh, they need me to be a well-rounded student. They want me to have all these different experiences within the theater profession. And I didn't have the talent for them, and I didn't have the vision for them.
So you had an awakening of your own. It wasn't an awakening that you necessarily missed your family, because, like you said, you guys were having an opportunity to connect probably about once a week or so. But you had an awakening where you were like, "Shit, this might not be what I actually wanted to do. This isn't, really what I thought it was going to be."
Yeah, like I immediately regret this decision. I won't say I immediately regret this decision because I loved it. I love theater. I love that performance. But what they wanted wasn't what I had to offer. And I admitted that. And it wasn't what I was interested in. And I admitted that to myself too. So I gave myself looking back, I gave myself that permission to say, whoa, 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 this ain't it.
But would you say that it was it was something that you weren't interested in versus something that you didn't have the chops for? Like, do you think that this is something that you definitely could have honed in on and developed the skills for if it were something that really interests you?
For those specific technical pieces, I probably could. If I'm going to learn something, I dive into it. When I do anything, I go all in on it. I had one friend of mine start joking one day, Ben, you're going too high. You only have one setting, and that's 400%. I'm like, hell yeah, I only got one setting, and it's 400%. Like, if I'm going to do something, I'm throwing myself all in. But something that I've learned that I believe is there has to be an alignment between what you're doing and what you're interested in and what you actually care about. If those two or three things are out of alignment, then you're going to be in a funk, man, and you're going to not know what to do next. And that was the most frightening thing to me, because I don't want to wake up and realize that I'm doing something that I hate just because it's what I'm doing.
So your interests start to change, right? And you start to have this interest in business. And was this related to the job that you had gotten, or did this come from somewhere completely different?
This was 100% related to the job that I had. There was a point when I was wrapping up kind of the theater major. I decided I didn't want to be a theater major about 3/4 of the way through that first semester. So I started preparing, okay, what do I want to do next? And I had a relationship at the time that I was very set on and very into, blah, 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 that whole spiel. And, I had some other thoughts of what I wanted to do, but as that relationship wound down and as I kind of, for lack of a better way to put it, came back down to earth, I realized it wouldn't be the right fit for me, and it didn't really align with me and my changing viewpoints, because that's what happens in college, right? You see new things, you learn new things, and you start to question what you value and determine whether or not you still choose to value it, because it's a choice at the end of the day. But
So,
go ahead.
no, I was going to say, tell me about this job, but say what you were going to say first.
Well, that's exactly what I was pivoting into, which is great. So this job, I started, like I said, 4 days before I started at Wayne State, and I was folding invoices and putting them in envelopes for about, I'd say, an average of 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. Which again is super engaging work from the sound of it, right? But to this day, I can still perfectly fold a piece of paper in threes to drop it in the mail, even with those little, the envelopes that have the address windows in them. Still
Yep.
can perfectly fold those. So, I mean, skills stick around, right? But that job started as, like I said, folding invoices and mailing them out. I'd get, 400 to 500 page stacks of invoices. I'd sort through, determine what we mail, what we don't, and shred everything that was, everything that we didn't need to mail out, shred it and recycle it. And the rest of the invoices, I'd fold in their envelopes, take them to the mailroom, and that was it. An interesting thing started to happen. I was brought on because a company transitioned over from, where was it? Massachusetts. They transferred over from Massachusetts and were getting their operations up, and they just needed hands. And I was a college student who needed a job and had a set of working hands, fortunately. And so they brought me in to do this. As that company got established, I started to work with the team to essentially automate myself out of a job. So everything I was doing should have been done by email anyways. No one reads paper mail. And it's even worse when you get a paper invoice, because I know most of the people we would be sending them to, in hindsight, wouldn't want to deal with the paper. So it made sense that we had to move to email. And ultimately, I and this team automated me out of a job. So now I'm an intern. I'm there. They've enjoyed having me around. And now they want to, use me for other stuff. So I got tapped for a more rigorous project. It was a lot more interesting, a lot more engaging. And this was my first real introduction to accounting specifically. So I had a team leader, the boss, who was overseeing me on this new project, sat down. Like I said, I was a theater major, so I had no accounting experience whatsoever, other than folding those invoices in thirds. She sat down with me, I want to say for 3 or 4 hours one day, and walked me through the basics of accounting so that I could start to work with her. And that was amazing to me. Here's this person who's probably making more than I could have dreamed I could make at the time, sitting down with the intern to teach him accounting so that he can help. How valuable is that? Like, how cool is that to see that someone cares that much to teach you this new language?
It's really cool. And it's amazing that somebody would sit down and take the time to do that with you, because, a lot of times at these higher level companies, and, not even maybe a higher level company, but the individuals who are at a higher level, they don't want to take the time to do that. They want to put somebody in place that already knows what they're doing, who can come in. They can just say, hey, I need you to, run this report or do this report this way, do these numbers this way. This is how I want to see it. And they just want it done that way. They don't want to sit down and take the time to show somebody how to do it. It's kind of like that old, I guess, what would you call it? Like the old proverb, whatever the word is, that, teach a man to fish and he'll, be able to eat for life. It's taking the time to show somebody to, how to do something.
Yeah. Teach the intern accounting and he'll do accounting for a while.
Well, and so would you say that this is kind of what started to turn things around for you and make you were already maybe semi reconsidering this theater major, but was this the nail in the coffin for the theater major, and what made you really decide, okay, I got to make this switch?
Yeah, so I don't necessarily want to say that I turned it around, because I was in a great place. I was doing cool stuff, and it's not like I was in the wrong place. I just wanted to move to a different place, if that makes sense. And so, I had already been exploring other options. I, for a bit, thought about leaving Wayne State University. I decided I wanted to stay. I did a brief stint as what was I at the time? I then moved into a communication studies major. That's the next step, with minors in physics and theater. So I still kind of kept theater on the table a little bit because I had enjoyed it so much. And I brought in physics because I really enjoyed the professor or the teacher I had in high school. So I did a stint as a theater minor, a physics minor, and a communication studies major. And I can tell you the specific day the specific moment even that I realized what business can do. I had a really supportive team leader. I've been very, very fortunate to work at, number one, a cool company that actually cares about its people. And number two, work with even cooler people within that company who look out for me and who want others to succeed along the way as well. So I was sitting in this office. There were 3 interns that were sharing an office, and I was sitting there. The other 2 had already left. And it was the night of the Republican debate in Detroit. And my team leader at the time kind of popped her head in and said, hey, I'm going to the debate, but I need to be in a city 4 hours away or 5 hours away in the morning for a meeting. You want to drive me in the morning? And of course, me being the intern, I'm like, I'm going to be on the clock for this. Hell yeah, I am in. Let's do this. And so she picked me up in the morning, and I drove down to Cleveland. And so we were sitting in this meeting, and, there were meetings all day, back to back to back. Granted, I am still not accounting. I still only know what I have been taught about accounting. And they were like, hey, kid, can you take notes on the walls during this meeting? We had like the whiteboard walls. They're like, hey, kid, take notes. It's like, I'm totally not qualified to do this, but yes, I am on board. So, I was getting to hear some interesting conversations and seeing the strategy that takes place within business. And that was kind of cool to me. But the end of the day came, and that same team leader looked at me and said, hey, there's a basketball game tonight. You want to stay for it? And again, intern, college student, hell yes. And so there was a definitive moment. We watched warm-ups courtside. We were sitting in the suite, and I was eating my dinner, and it was a commercial break between play. And I was watching sort of the hype squad come out, and we're sitting in a packed stadium of however 15 some odd thousand. I don't even know what the stadium's capacity was, but that's beside the point. I was sitting among 15,000 people who absolutely love this team that they're watching. And they're so fired up and they're so invested. And like the flip of a switch, I realized if you build a business right and if you do things the right way, business can do very, very good things. It can be abused, of course, and that's something that happens. But if you do it the right way and you build it the right way and you care about people from the get, you can build something incredible.
I think that that's probably one of the most important things about business is like if you care about somebody or you care about the people who work for you, you care about the people who you're serving, you care about what you're doing, like deep down inside, not just the front that you put on, when someone asks what you do or what your company does, but if you truly deep down inside care about what you're doing, there's no doubt that you're going to go on and do, some amazing things. So this was your pivotal moment, right? But had you had any prior experience or exposure to business other than this job that you were working as an intern?
Definitely not business to this scale. I had the good fortune of working at a really large company, and so I got to see a lot more. But I've been working since I was a kid. I had a newspaper route. Me and a elementary school buddy tried lemonade stands and all that other kind of fun stuff. And I had a paper route, and then I worked at a bike shop in sales for a summer with my brother, and then I spent the summer after I graduated high school at the Michigan Science Center. It's like a local science informal education environment, and it was awesome. I was an educator assistant. I got to help teach kids and support the educators. It was a really cool experience. So I hadn't had experience with business on that scale to realize just how much things can compound and things can scale.
And what was it about your experience that night at the basketball game that really sealed it for you and made you think, this is exactly what I want to do?
I don't know, truthfully. And I think at the time, I was in a place where I was thinking about what I wanted to do. And I didn't know what exactly it would be, but I knew I wanted to help people and I wanted to build something cool along the way. And so I don't know exactly what it was. I think it was the community that was created in this stadium and seeing how passionate and fired up people were about players who might not even know they exist. But seeing the community and seeing the passion and the drive and the buy-in that just a company created solely by doing its thing. I think that was the most critical development for me.
At this point, you're now bouncing to what is your third major, right? It's
Yep.
still within your first year of college.
Yeah.
So I got to circle back.
I'll be honest, almost first semester. This happened by like March. So in a semester and a half, I held 3 different majors.
And so I have to circle back to a question that I asked you earlier. At this point, again, was there anyone who was like, Ben, what the hell are you doing? You're like, can you just make up your mind? You're like, you're bouncing around. You have no idea what you want to do. Like, you need to figure this out. Like, or were they,
Get it
giving you
together.
shit? Like, what are you doing? Yeah. Like, was there anything like that was going on?
I'm going to give you the same answer that I gave you before. If they did say that, I wasn't listening or I didn't hear. I've had conversations with people close to me where they say like, "Oh, Ben, you had something. You had something you were passionate about and you were working toward." And what that tells me is I haven't done a good enough job explaining and showing the passion and the reason that I'm doing what I'm doing. So, one or two instances I can remember that coming up. And yeah, it's been a gut punch when it happens. But for me, I gave myself permission to do my own thing and permission to ask. I think that's one of my biggest assets that I've found is I'm not afraid to ask questions. I'm not afraid to look like an idiot if I have a question and I don't understand the answer. I'm willing to probe that extra layer to see what's actually going on.
So you make this change into your business major,
Major
and
number 3. Yep.
major number 3. Now, so you get into your second semester, you really start to get into some of your business classes, because I'm sure the same applies. You had your AP courses, so you didn't have any gen eds that you really needed to kind of knock out. But you also start a podcast, and you are starting this podcast because you know that you're not an expert, but you do know some experts who are experts in their own fields, right?
Yeah.
And so you want to give these experts a platform to share their stories and their successes. And like, as a young college kid guy, I won't call you a kid,
You can
guy,
call me
young
a kid.
college guy,
That's okay.
um, that's way, way above anything that I would have ever come up with as a freshman in college. Like, as a freshman in college, my focus was, where's the party tonight? How much is it for my cup of beer? Like,
Yeah, the
and
practical matters.
well, mind you, I was in the same shoes as you. Like, I worked through my entire college career. So,
Okay.
Monday through Friday, maybe Monday through Thursday,
Yeah.
it was, I was in the same shoes. I was lifeguarding, I was coaching swimming, like, but then, when it came time for Friday, I was ready to go out and party and go visit my friends. So this concept that you came up with, that's like, it's just very, very high level for someone that is at that point in their life. So where did that come from? How did you come up with that?
Well, so let me say we're making a bit of a time skip here. So I transitioned. I got back from that meeting in that basketball game. The next day, I applied for the business school and an accounting and finance school double major. Um, so I did that. I've been doing that since early 2016. I want to say March 2016. I made that change. I've been working and doing school and doing this business major since then. I take summer classes, the whole nine. This idea and this thought, I can't take credit for it because I have a friend of mine who left and started his own podcast. He was a coworker. He went and started doing his own thing. And that was the first time I really realized how tangible and how possible it is, and that it was an option. And then I'd been kind of thinking, I tried doing some vlogs over last summer. That was when I was first getting to be active on social media. And I thought I might have a thing or two to share. I've realized that I've got a lot of really cool experience, but I also think it's important to allow other people a platform to share their insights because, I don't want it to just be me sitting here and talking the entire time, because there's an element of conversation that really brings out the best in both parties that are there. So it really came out of a place of wanting to document because, I am very much the type that learns by doing and learns by stories. Well, professionally, I'm doing the learning by doing. I'm doing the accounting thing right now. And so personally, I wanted to capture some of that learning by hearing stories. And I figured with the help of a close buddy of mine, the one that left and started his podcast, I really realized that if I'm going through this and I'm trying to learn all of this, there's other young professionals and college students and recent college grads that are trying to figure out the same thing. And if I can share my stories and my questions and the guest stories and their responses and their insights, then hopefully I can start to build this community that focuses on sharing and building and growing and learning together. So I can't take credit for this idea. I, have been trying to shape it and morph it as I go, but it's not an original Ben Trela patent pending idea,
Yes, I do know, but I still think that even from what you just said, it's still very high level. Like it's still very high level to think that way. And so when you started to get into social media and come up with this idea for vlogging and sharing things, I would hate to assume, I don't like to assume, but I would have to assume that you got into vlogging because vlogging was and kind of still is like the thing to do. Like I can't tell you how many like 7 or 8-ish year olds to up to like 11, 12, like they think that that's what they're going to do. Like for the rest of their life, they think that they're going to be a vlogger. Like they
Mm-hmm.
want to be this is going to make me cringe to even say it. They want to be the next Logan Paul. They want to be the next Jake Paul. Like they think that that is a viable option, right? So I can see how that would be something that was an option for you, especially given your background, right? Like acting, you could probably do some really cool shit on a vlog, like given your background. Like it would be way more entertaining than just even some of the stuff that's out there right now. But as far as the podcast thing goes and building a community and things like that, like yes, they may not be original ideas for you, but they had to be ideas that were coming from somewhere. So, aside from your friend who took off to launch his own podcast, was there anyone else who you started following in your early days of social media and everything else that helped kind of like blow on this little spark and this little ember to help ignite what it is that you're doing?
Yeah, so this is a very, very simple, I don't want to say simple, a very easy question for me to answer because it was Gary Vee, right? Document, don't create really hit home with me. And so what I was trying to do in these first days of vlogging was document things that I had learned about personal finance because I find that very interesting, which makes sense because it's the intersection of business and people. I just kind of realized that now in talking, but that's pretty cool, right? And so I just wanted to share some of what I'd learned from others and from my own experience. And so hearing the document, don't create really, really hit home for me. I still don't even understand to the full extent what I'm documenting, but I just know that I'm kind of dropping a quick hint into what my life is, and maybe not a hint, but providing a window into what I'm doing, because I think one day it might be cool to see where I go. I'm maybe this is bravado talking, maybe this is whatever you want to call it, boasting. People can put on whatever label they deem applicable, but I believe that I can do something really cool with my life, and I want to share that because I think wisdom can come from anywhere and anyone, even if it's the most underserved individual. I have gotten wisdom from people all over the map. And so documenting to me really made a lot of sense because it allowed me to show what was happening in the moment, what I've done so far, where I'm at, and then give me a chance in 30 years to look back and say, hey, this kid was pretty nuts, but he's kind of cool.
And to play off of that and the documenting and being able to look back in 30 years, as we talked about before we started recording, and even as we have kind of, weaved our way through your story,
Yeah,
you you felt like when we got connected that you may not be a good fit for the Do It For Yourself podcast because you hadn't really like accomplished the goal that it was that you set out for, right? But I said to you, listen, I I want to have you on. And I wanted to have you on for two reasons. And the first reason is a reason that I shared with you. And that is that I want this to be an evergreen episode. And I want to have the chance to sit down with you again, whether it be in 6 months, a year, 3 years from now,
for sure.
so that we can go back and say, hey, Ben, here was the first episode. Remember where you were, right? Let's talk about where you are now.
Yeah.
So I wanted to use it as that. But the other thing that I wanted to use it as, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, but I want to use this as an accountability piece as well. So I want us on the Do It For Yourself side to be able to hold you accountable for this documentation.
Hell yeah.
So I want you to put it out there for us and put it out there for the listeners. Like, what are your goals? Where do you want to go over these next few years?
All right, let me let that question marinate for a sec because there's a lot. The biggest thing that I'm pursuing is happiness. And I define happiness as a fundamental alignment. And maybe this definition really falls more in the line of joy or fulfillment. But I think when you hear it, hopefully it clears it up. And I've mentioned it before, but it's the fundamental alignment between what you're doing and what you care about. And so what I care about is going to change over the next few years because I'll be a more experienced, more individual person, a more individual version of me. And so what I'm doing might shift, but the most important thing to me is doing something I care about and something I value and helping others along the way. And if I can do so, building a personal position of strength, whether that's self-confidence or financial strength, all the different components, building that so that I can really help other people and lift other people along the way. So that's one thing. Number two, I, in the next few years, want to be building a company of some sort. I don't yet know what it is or what specifically it's going to do, but I really want to build my own thing because I've kind of noticed that it's not that I have an issue with authority, but I just don't believe in silly rules. And I like having the freedom to respond to issues or problems in different ways and have some more flexibility. And so I want to be building my own thing and doing my own thing, which I realize is I'm already doing, right? Because I'm doing a podcast. I'm doing a little bit of blogging on the side. And I'm doing it because, number one, I thought it would be cool. But as I've been doing it, I realize how much I do care about providing this platform. So I think the biggest thing I want to accomplish is, number one, continuing to be happy in doing what I'm doing because I actually care about it. And number two, build a community that supports each other, shares stories, and is committed to learning and growing together.
Well, now you put it out there, right? So we're going to be able to keep you accountable on that. And
absolutely terrifying. And I love it.
No, I mean, I really dig that as well. Like, and I'm really glad that you put it out there, and that we now have this evergreen episode that we can go back and look at, a few years from now, and who knows, like when we're on the iPhone 25, and if they still have podcast apps at that point, like, and you're going through and looking for the archives of, where was Ben Trela in 2019.
Yeah,
Like, I hope that this is still out there floating around somewhere.
me too.
But as we start to kind of wind things down, I want to just ask you what it means to you to be doing it for yourself. And we had a chance to discuss this a little bit, right, before we, got to recording. So,
Mhm.
but again, I just want you to kind of marinate on that and think about it, and, let us know what it means to Ben to be doing it for yourself.
What it means to Ben to be doing it for Ben. I think one of the biggest components of that, not I think, I know that one of the biggest components of doing it for myself is defining and knowing what I actually care about and what I actually value, and being willing to be brutally honest with myself when that misalignment comes. But to be doing it for me is giving myself the permission to be happy, and the permission to do things because I'm passionate about them, and because I think it's cool, and because I think it's exciting, and because it's something I actually give a shit about.
I'm with that, man. I'm with it. And I mean, I like it. And I'm super, super pumped that we got connected and got a chance to sit down and do this, because I'm really looking forward to sitting down again in the future so that we can go back over this again and talk about where you are at that point. Right.
Yeah,
So it's something that I'm super excited about. And I really enjoyed our conversation. So I just want to take a minute to, one, say thank you again so much for coming on and getting in touch with me. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate you going the extra step, like sending me a message, like just everything. I appreciate you taking the time to get connected with me and showing the interest in coming on the podcast. And the second thing, I want to give you a chance to let everyone know where they can find you, how they can keep up with you, and how they can stay on you and keep you accountable.
definitely. Well, thanks for having me. Like I said, this is my first interview, and I think it's one for the record books for sure. Um, in terms of getting in touch with me, most of my current activity is on Instagram. I am at ben.trela. That's B as in boy, E-N, period, Trela, spelled T as in Tom, R-E-L-A. I'm active somewhat on LinkedIn as well. I'm Ben Trela. The biggest way to kind of follow and stay up to date on what I've been working on is to check out Taste for Tenacity. Taste for Tenacity, if we could cut that part out in post production. Taste for Tenacity. It's a podcast that I recently launched. I'm going to do a shameless plug. To share those insights and stories from more seasoned entrepreneurs and more seasoned professionals with younger people like me that are learning and trying to figure everything out. So that's called Taste for Tenacity. It's on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.
Right on. All right. Well, thank you so much again for coming on, Ben. I appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate you taking the time to hang out with me this evening. So thank you, and I hope that you have a good evening.
Ian, thanks a million for having me on, and you have a great Tuesday.
All right, my friends, that is my conversation with Ben Trela. And I'm very thankful that Ben took the opportunity to come on the podcast and share what has happened so far in his journey of doing it for himself. And I'm very thankful that Ben was open to this idea, and I'm really looking forward to reconnecting with him to document his story on how he is doing it for himself. So I hope that you are looking forward to the next episode with Ben as well. And I look forward to seeing you again next week.